Hi guys, you're welcome to the fourth class in our post series on the Single Ladies Emerge program. And today we are going to be talking about cultural acceptance as a single lady. What does this mean and why is it important for you to pay attention to the indicators that show that you are accepting or you're conforming to culture in our world today? And before we go further, I truly want us to talk about a few terminologies. What does culture mean? Where did it come from? One of the things I want us to understand is that every human being interacts with the world through the lens of their mental conditioning. And that mental conditioning comes from what we call culture. Culture as a result of their social development, their formal or informal education, and their interaction with exactly how they came up. Okay. And social development to a very large extent also refers to how it is you were raised up, what environment, what sort of parents, what sort of siblings, what sort of norms and traditions you grew up with. And so sometimes when you see yourself interpreting things in certain ways, it's because you got that conditioning from somewhere and you are interpreting or interacting with the world through that conditioning. And that's how a lot of us engage culture in our world today. And as single ladies, you have watched your single elder sisters, single aunties, single cousins, you have watched them live their lives. And from the summation of all single neighbors, or even single seniors, you have watched them live their lives in certain ways, and them living their lives in those ways has created a cadre as to how life should be lived. And so that's how a lot of us get our conditioning. Let me give you a typical example. As a young single lady, I had the opportunity to do my IT in Federal Capital City, Abuja, but I was living with, some of my senior aunties who were single. And these senior aunties then at the time had houses of their own. When I say houses of their own, rented apartments, properly furnished, gadgets. As a single lady, they were living very good lives, right? And at that point, there was a question of how were these lifestyles being maintained, because I could look at them very visibly. They didn't have serious businesses. They didn't have, jobs that I could almost say funded their lifestyle. But as I began to dig deeper, I started to see that there was a major thing that was common in their lives. And that's, having a guy or an uncle or a sugar daddy, as we would call it, fund their lifestyle. I got to see this as a single lady who was, growing into society. And so after a while of my staying in that house, it's a transitionary period, I moved on to, become on my own. And when I did get a house, I started to tell myself, because I had seen single ladies who I used to live with furnish their apartments, I had to have my apartment furnished. So I would find that all the savings I had as a single lady who was doing all kinds of buying and selling, because I did all kinds of businesses right from my first day in school, I would use my savings that I was supposed to use in investing to furnish my home. So as a single lady then, when I had my first apartment in Abuja, that's in Yanya Maraba Axis, Karo Axis, pardon me, I had a sitting room and a room, and in my sitting room, I had furniture, TV set, DSTV. My room was properly furnished, because I had gotten that conditioning from that place to say, even if you're a single lady, you should have everything pimped up. And in retrospect, looking at my decision then, it didn't make sense. There was no reason why I should truly touch my entire house when I was living by myself. I was the one paying the bills, and I was funding those things from the businesses that I was meant to be saving from. Do you see how powerful mental conditionings can be if we do not take charge of what we accept and what we don't accept? And so that's how I ended up throughout my service year and being, staying all the way in Abuja before I truly got a place of my own, ended up using all my savings for lifestyle. Using all my savings for lifestyle instead of saving it. And just from looking at that was a season in my life where I should truly have accumulated a lot of wealth because I didn't have any responsibilities. I honestly didn't. I was just responsible for myself, right? I should have accumulated a lot of wealth by investing this amount of money, either in shares, in lands, in property, or even in other sorts of, personal development. But my conditioning, which was framed by the people I surrounded myself with, made me squander what I was meant to be saving. Now, let's bring it down to you. The things you do today, I need you to sit down and make a list of where you got those conditionings from. For some of you, as a single lady, because you're in a phase in your life where you are truly, trying to understand and navigate your singlehood. So you're going to have to consciously sit down and say, where did I get all my habits, all my expectations, all my behaviors, all my attitude, all my responses to life from? Identify it. Once you identify it, that's the first step to nipping it in the bud. Because the minute you identify it, you'll be able to tell yourself, this one isn't right, this one will cost me this one won't cost me this. And once you have made that identification, the next thing is to write it very clearly, the different attitudes that you believe you inherited from either associations, watching people, or from people you lived around, after which you then begin to transplant it with the ones that you believe you want to see in your life. And then begin to transplant it with the ones you want to see in your life. Having said that, the next thing to truly begin to pay attention to is acceptance. Acceptance means the action of consenting to receive or undertaking something offered, meaning that you have seen things either by association, by living in certain neighborhoods, by living with certain people. The point is, do you actually now want to accept it as part of your life now that you know it is counter the things you should be doing? What this truly means is that your decision to accept a culture, a conditioning that you have known all your life is totally dependent on you. Ignorance is not an excuse in the world where we live in, because the SI unit of your life, the SI unit of destiny is time, and how you spend your every day is going to determine how your next 5 years, 10 years is going to be. Now you may be single and you probably think, yeah, I do have some time to play around. But guess what? A lot of times I find that as a single lady, it is time for you to actually build the foundation with which you will end up in your married life, and even when you begin to have children. Because a lot of times it's important as a lady to understand that you are a treasured investment when you enter into the house of a man. And because of who you have become, when you enter into that man's house, you now become, favorable. Like the scripture says, he who finds a good wife, who finds a wife findeth a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. A wife is a good thing if the wife is not a liability. And when I say liability, I'm not just talking about you not being employed. I'm talking about you not developing the right character, the right attribute, the right mental conditioning that keeps you a favorable partner to your spouse. Now, I'm not saying that a man should be good, the woman should be bad. No, I'm focusing on the single lady now, because the beauty of your waiting until it's time for you to settle is so that you can become what Proverbs says. He who finds us a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. A good thing is usually something that has taken its time to develop, identify the innate things within them, develop them, polish them, so that once they enter into the next phase of their lives, they now become a complementary gift or a complementary person to the other person. Now, in my own case, the things I didn't learn as a single lady, I suffered them in marriage, because I entered into marriage with that, lifestyle of that lifestyle. And then I ended up not being able to save for the first 7 years of my marriage. It's after 7 years, it dawned on me that I had been suffering from a mental conditioning I picked as a single lady, hanging out with different people who I believed were my senior aunties then. Do you see how this is? So imagine if I knew this thing 7 years ago before I got married, what would happen is I would live a better quality of life, because I now understand savings, investment, and truly just living within your means. And that's why I said these things are very important for you to sit down, identify what you're picking, where it's coming from, and how it's going to affect the sum total of your lives. The next thing we're going to talk about here today is, how do we currently engage culture? If we look at our lives very well, majority of the times we engage culture either by blending in, jumping on trends, pleasing people, aka the validation syndrome, like I like to call it, and social media relevance. And this, my friends, I find that is one of the most dangerous things that happens to us, especially as single ladies. What does it mean to blend in and jump on trends? A lot of times we find out that as people who have a relationship with God, it's difficult for us to express who we are because we believe that in every society, for you to be accepted, for you to be validated, you need to blend in with what is accepted culturally in the society or what is accepted as a norm in the society. And if you are going to act that way, it means that you should be willing to jump on trends, every and any trend, just so that you're accepted and validated. One of the things I want us to understand today is what you see on social media is the highlights of people. It's not really their stories. If you see the stories of people, you will never be deceived by the highlights. And I know it's easy to say that because, hey, every time you do look onto what you see on social media, it makes you feel like, well, this is somebody like me. This is a single lady like me. How many hairs does she have? But if you're being realistic with yourself, you will know that the stories are not what they portray on social media. But let's put that on one corner. Let's unpack this other area that I find very important. And that area is understanding your true identity. If you understand your true identity, you would realize that you are the standard, not society, not social media relevance, not trends. You are the standard. And one of those days I was listening to somebody who I consider a mentor. He said to me, he said, fear anybody who has a proper understanding of who they are. He puts it this way, he said, any man who has a proper understanding of who they are, that's a man that the world should be afraid of. And every time I take that statement and attempt to unpack it even makes me a lot more afraid. Because any man who has a deeper understanding or a deep understanding of who they are, they become invincible to the world. Invincible means untouchable to the world. It means they enter into a place, if you underrate them, they prove you wrong. Not because they are trying to prove you wrong, because, hey, they know who they are. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what happened with David and Goliath. David was a dangerous man because he knew who he was. And even when the whole world was saying, hey, this boy cannot do it, this boy cannot do it. Excuse me, the boy went into the battlefield and said, who are you, O circumcised Philistine? I will cut off your head today. That has to be a man who understands who he was, his identity, and he went for it undeterred. The reason why you're blending in, jumping on trend, pleasing people, acting, wanting to be relevant on social media is because you truly don't know who you are. If you knew who you were, you will build from inside out. And building from inside out means that you are bringing everything inside of you, serving it to the world. And by serving it to the world, you are dictating to the world how they should treat you, how they should interact with your gifts, and how they should actually respond to the things that you churn out. So it means that you are serving the world, your giftings, your talents, your solutions, and you are saying to them, upon this basis, interact with me. So you are basically calling the shots for your life and for what you want to see. That's what it means to have an identity of who you are. And how easy is this? Well, the first thing is you are made in the image and likeness of God, my darling sister. And I know you have heard that a lot. What it means to be made in the image and likeness of God is that you have the nature of God. You have the behavior of God. The nature of God, what is the nature of God? The nature of God is He's created, He's powerful, He's love, He's rooted, He's grounded. Of course, He's confident, He's powerful. Tell me everything you know about the nature of God. Make a list of it where you're standing and say, if everything like this is who the nature of God is, then that's who I am. And based upon that, you begin to draw up your life based upon these facts and understanding that you know. Because revelation of who the nature of God is enhances you to truly live the life that God has called you to live. And now that you know that you are made in the image and likeness of the invisible God, your job is to emulate Jesus Christ as the standard. One of the reasons Jesus came to the earth, yes, to die for our sins, but truly to show us what it means to be God. That's one of the things Jesus came to do. He came to show us on earth what it means to be God. So God said, I made you in my image and likeness. And because we have never seen God, we only feel Him. It was difficult for us to be able to relate to a person we'll never see. We don't know how he acts. So he had to send Jesus, say, okay, you are me, go. Let them see you. When they see you, they see how I am. And in studying the compendium of books that were written in the scriptures about the life of Jesus, it gives us a full mirror advantage into looking at who God is, just by looking at the life of Jesus. So that means if you want to live like God every day of your life, being the standard, all you need to do is mirror Jesus. How did he treat people? How did he interact with leaders? How did he interact with friends? How did he interact with society? How did he interact with culture? Was he the one who was moved about by everything? Remember when they came to him to say, why are you healing on the Sabbath? Sabbath was culture, guys. Sabbath was like, okay, this is what we normally do. Let me give you a typical example. This is the trend on social media. The trend on social media is you have to do X, Y, Z to be able to stand out, or you have to do X, Y, Z to be able to be impactful on social media, right? That was just how the law of the Sabbath was. On Sabbath, this should not be done. And Jesus came and said, I'm not going to conform to this, by asking them a counter question. So which of it is easier to do? To let a man die, to let, what's the word now? To help somebody get better on a Sabbath day. So he was counter culture. He was counter the norm. So what does this mean? It means that Jesus was trying to teach you that the society should not conform you. The society should not tell you what to do and what not to do. You should figure out what is right in the eyes of God and be the standard for the world to follow. And in him living his life, he showed that the world will not like you, because several times they wanted to kill Jesus even before they actually killed him. They were so vexed by his radicality because they were like, who is this young man, age 30, flaunting all our rules, flaunting all the culture, going against culture, breaking the norm, left, right, and center, and everybody's following him. Jesus was the biggest influencer of all times. I say it all the time. Jesus was the biggest influencer of all time because he entered into cities and the whole world will gather without megaphone, without posters, without sponsored ad, without renting stadiums, without publicity. As he entered, what happens? Word of mouth, it spreads like wildfire. Tell me about influence. Now that's the man who was countering every culture, every norm, every tradition, every religion, and saying to them, no, I am the standard. So dear single lady who is listening to me today, if you were to replace side by side with Jesus in the way he walked on earth in interacting with culture, what would your report card be? What will your report card be? And that's something you must take very importantly, because he is the standard. And if you're emulating him as the standard, you too will become the standard. That means you must be comfortable looking at what does not work in society and say, I will not conform. Even if all my friends are saying this is the right way to go, I will do it differently. And they will, just by watching me consistently doing it differently, they will join. It's what it is. So you have friends who every now and then, all they do is really shopping. And you say, yeah, you guys are my friends. I like that you guys shop, but I'm going to be on a monthly budget. I only shop when I maybe 5 months or 6 months. And I'm saving and investing my stocks and I'm building my wealth portfolio. Now, in your circle of friends, if they watch you consistently doing it, guess what? They're not dumb. One day they will sit down and say, come on, we're wasting our lives. This person is building a wealth portfolio. And then they notice that just by you building yourself and speaking differently, you begin to command respect. Because listen, anyone who is a culture counterer or who counters culture and does not conform, they may hate you over a while, they may dislike you over a while, but after a while, they will be the ones to run after you. That's just what the world is about. So, in conclusion today, I want to encourage you to truly make a list of the things that you believe that are pressuring you to not show the Christ-like nature of you, of yourself, or the list of activities that you believe you are not comfortable expressing your Christ-like nature. Make a list of those things. Then write beside that list, what will Christ do? Once you're able to write what will Christ do, merge them together, and at the third column, write what will you do? I'm going to go over that again. Make a list of the things that You feel you're uncomfortable being Christ-like about today, right? Write, what will Jesus Christ do? Then on the third column, write, what will I, put your name, do? The minute you're able to insert what Christ will do into what you will do, you will find that you will become the standard as you start to live your life. And the idea, again, is not to seek validation, it's not to seek applause, it's not to seek recommendation. It's to just do you. Because as you do you, the world will come to your rising. Okay? I love you so much. And I know that this journey you are on as a single lady, so many of us have been through that journey, you know. And I just wanted to quickly round up the story I shared with you about getting my own place in Abuja and furnishing it with all the different things you could possibly have in your home. I was replicating being a settled lady with a single lady. Now that's not to say anything is wrong with that if you do have the means and the finances, but it was misplaced priorities. I was creating a lifestyle when I didn't have savings or investment, right? And fast forward to when I finished my service year, I left that house with everything I had in it because I was relocating to Lagos. I ended up having to sell those things at a very funny price. A very funny price. That was not an investment. That was not an asset. It was a liability. And that's how I almost want to say I wasted that period of my life. But thank God for God who has been gracious. Now you have access to learning the things I probably didn't know then. I'm not saying don't have a great lifetime. I'm not saying don't be comfortable, especially when you can afford it, but spend a lot more time building yourself, personal development, a wealth portfolio, because the future is right in front of you and you want to be ready and prepared when it comes. If I knew better then, what will I do differently? One thing, I would have developed myself powerfully. I would have, if I had identified this gift I had then as a single lady, I would have developed myself radically, taking courses, programs, certifications, and then to the position me to do greater things at a younger age. Well, of course, I'm not late in time by the grace of God, but I'm just saying that because I have access to what I should have done better, I'm sharing that with you so that you begin to know that this is a time for radical investment into yourself to become the vessel God has created you to become. God bless you, and I love you so much. And hey, if you've gotten value from today's episode, feel free to share with all your network of friends, families, colleagues, even your enemies. And if you feel led to support what we do here at this Single Ladies Emerge, please feel free to use the buttons you will see in the description box. I think in the first episode, or just send us a personal message. God bless you, and I love you so very much. Bye.